This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. If you're like me, when you do your financial assets and statement of financial condition at the end of the year, you add a 25 or 30% premium because of your celebrity, because you need to increase your financial statement in order to make a loan or a purchase, or if you want to buy a sports team. That doesn't happen to you. You don't add anywhere between 15 and 30% to your personal bottom line because you felt like it one day. You don't order your employees that work for you in the various financial reporting positions to do just that in order to get a loan, in order to move yourself up to the top of the Forbes wealthiest people in the world list. You don't. Donald Trump does. And if you thought it was a terrible set of witnesses testifying against Donald Trump that used to work for the Trump organization, like already called to the stand Alan Weisselberg, the disgraced felon, former chief financial officer for 50 years, who's a certified public accountant who doesn't know what generally accepted accounting principles are. And if you thought it was terrible for Captain Kangaroo Jeff McConney, the controller who reported to Alan Weisselberg, who's also retired, to testify against Donald Trump and say there's fraud in the organization. How do you think it went today when Mr. Bernie took the stand and had to testify that they often considered adding anywhere between a 15% and 30% premium, meaning artificially inflating, fraudulently inflating assets in order to satisfy their boss, Donald Trump, and that Alan Weisselberg, for Donald Trump, instructed him to do it. Now, he conceded that they didn't ultimately do it, although that's maybe not true because Alan Weisselberg, while he was on the stand in the New York Attorney General case that's pending in New York, testified that he regularly instructed McConney to just add zeros to things on Donald Trump's balance sheet. He told him that he should add, for instance, $20 million onto the Trump penthouse in Trump Tower, and that he should add a 30% premium to various golf course properties of Donald Trump. So I'm not sure I completely believe Mr. Bernie, and he's not off the stand yet, as the week's trial testimony concluded, but he said, well, we thought about it. A presidential premium, or even a bigger number, an ex-presidential premium of up to 30%. Look, Michael Cohen told us about all of this in 2019 in congressional testimony before he went off to jail. He said under oath to the two congressional leaders that Donald Trump ordered him and Alan Weisselberg to regularly attempt to inflate his asset value in order to either buy a football team when he was interested in buying a football team, or to move up on the Forbes 400 list, or to obtain more loans. I mean, Cohen laid it out in 2019. He talked about which properties and how Donald Trump did it. Sometimes it was just reverse engineering. How big of a number does my boss want for the asset on his books? And then we'll figure out a way to get there. That's what he said happened to the Trump organization. In fact, Mr. Bernie, soon to be unemployed, I'm sure, Mr. Bernie, after 9 years at the Trump organization, testified on a number of occasions that the premium consideration was at the direction of Alan Weisselberg. So again, connecting the dots from Trump to Weisselberg to Cohen, who's going on the stand next week, now to Bernie, who's testifying about it. Now, Donald Trump likes to say outside the courtroom that his assets and his statement of financial condition is even greater because it includes, or it doesn't include, a premium, any kind of brand premium. But this is exactly what Bernie just testified to today in court, that Donald Trump wanted to add a brand premium, a made-up number pulled out of his backside to add to his assets, to inflate them artificially, against statements that Donald Trump and the organization signed in his own statement of financial condition, where Donald Trump attested and repped and warranted that there were no premiums based on his worldwide reputation included in any of these numbers, because banks like to know that. They like to know if you're making up numbers, if you're ginning and cooking the books. They want to know it. And so Donald Trump signed and said, no, there's no premium. While his henchmen, while his money men at his direction were adding premiums onto amounts. I mean, Donald Trump's net worth doubled Like he doubled his billions of dollars of net worth in a 2-year span of time. And all of this shit hit the fan, as we say in the courthouse, when Forbes magazine, you'll be hearing a lot about Forbes magazine in this trial, when Forbes magazine in 2017 outed Donald Trump and the size of his, wait for it, penthouse. They said his penthouse, and they had proof of it from building plans and in fire marshal plans, that apartment was only 11,000 or a little bit less than 11,000 square feet, not 33,000 square feet. And that made a big difference. So now the Trump organization and Donald Trump had a hole. They had a big donut hole they had to fill. Boom. They had to increase the value of the other assets. You know, you do this all the time, right? You lose an asset, you sell something, it gets destroyed or whatever. And so you just raise the value of the other assets to cover it up, wallpaper over it. Hopefully nobody will notice that my Trump penthouse number went way down by 2/3, but all my other assets went up by 2/3. Right? Nobody will notice that. This is the fraud. People think it was complex. This wasn't a complex fraud. This wasn't a sophisticated fraud that took the New York Attorney General years to investigate and figure it out. This is like amateurish 8th grade stuff. I think 8th graders could come up with a better plan than Donald Trump. Change the numbers, increase the size of the numbers, triple the numbers, add 30 million onto the numbers. What's the number I need? Say that's the number on my financial statement. I mean, that's it. That's not, I give more credit to like Bernie Madoff. He kept a Ponzi scheme going for 20 and 30 years and bilked billions of dollars from people with an elaborate fraudulent scheme. Donald Trump just made up numbers. That's his fraud. So when he's in jail talking to his cellmate, what are you in for? What was your fraud? Tell me all about it. What's he going to say? I just doubled my asset value and because I just changed the number on the computer. And so Bernie has got to testify. He's got the attorney general staring down his throat. This guy ever wants to work another day in his life in financial service or anywhere else, he's going to have to testify truthfully. And apparently he is, much to the chagrin of Donald Trump, who's nowhere to be found this week at the trial. You'd think maybe the day you'd show up is the day that your own employee is testifying against you. First of all, I'm not even sure he knew who Patrick Bernie was. Maybe he did. Certainly Alan Weisselberg knew who Bernie was, and Jeff McConney knew who Bernie was, and Michael Cohen knew who Bernie was. And so they all got together to fudge the books for their boss at his behest. They didn't get anything out of it. You think Bernie, who started out 8 years ago as a senior financial analyst, probably making who knows what, you think he's benefiting from Donald Trump's tripling the size of his assets, tripling his net worth? Forget it. If he got an extra, hot water bottle at Christmas, that would be a lot from Donald Trump. No way. And that's why he's not lying for him now. And so we will see how young Master Bernie does on the stand again when he takes the stand. But for right now, it's been terrible, devastating, truthful, authentic testimony against Donald Trump. They don't have to prove that they actually implemented the 30% to 15% premium increase plan. The fact that they were even talking about it in violation of their reps and warranties in their statement of financial condition demonstrates the intent necessary to prove her case, the New York Attorney General's case. Right? You don't have to go through with the conspiracy. It doesn't have to actually obtain its objective. If you plan to rob the bank, that is attempted conspiracy. Well, that's conspiracy to attempt to rob a bank. I'm sorry. And that's what we're watching with the Bernie testimony. And think about the power of the narrative and the momentum of the witnesses that Letitia James and the Office of Attorney General is putting on. Because I said in prior hot takes, as a trial lawyer, it's so important to sequence your witnesses properly, right? They're not just pulled out of a Scrabble bag. Oh, I think I'll do this witness now. No. You put the witnesses on in a certain order, a logical order, an internal consistency, right? That makes sense to the trier of fact, who's the judge, Judge Engoron. And so you start in the case of Letitia James. Witness number 1, day 1, Don Bender, outside auditor and accountant for 12 years, who walked away from the engagement because he wasn't getting proper information in order to certify his audit. and therefore said nothing in their audits for 12 years prior at Mazars, the company Donald Trump used, can be relied upon. That Donald Bender, the one who also did the personal tax returns for Donald Trump, Melania Trump, the Trump kids, Alan Weisselberg, and McConney. That's the guy you call for 2.5 days to dump on Donald Trump as witness number one, then bring one of his colleagues in. Then when you're done with that, let's bring in Jeff McConney. And Jeff McConney, the controller, who wants to get about as far away from this case as possible, having already got an immunity deal against prosecution, who testified against the Trump organization for tax evasion and got them convicted on 17 counts last year, he then testified and truthfully said he's not sure he's going to get his $500,000 severance package from Donald Trump anymore. And that if he didn't participate in the fraud that he outlined, he'd probably get fired. I like McConney. He told the truth. He had to do it under penalty of going to jail, but he told the truth. Next up, in the momentum building of witnesses, Alan Weisselberg, who already went to jail for Donald Trump, 50-year plus CFO, chief financial officer, worked for Trump elder, Trump daddy, knows where all the bodies are buried, probably buried him himself. And so he testified. And, you know, he was a little bit muted. He's waiting on a $1.5 million or $1.2 million severance package from Donald Trump. Doesn't want to F that up. But she got out. The attorney general got out what she needed from Alan Weisselberg, especially since there's no jury and only a judge who's evaluating his credibility. And so then we go to bankers for Deutsche Bank who testify about relying on Donald Trump's financial information to make loans. And so if they were wrong, they overlent, they lent too much money, and that's a fraud. And so we had the Deutsche Bank person come in. And now it's time to return to the third insider, but this one's still employed. This particular guy who's testifying, Patrick Burney. See the momentum? And we're only on the second week of a trial that's going to go 4 to 5 months. There's another like 90 days, 85 days of trial. You know, Donald Trump picks and chooses what day the Trump circus is going to come to town. And it's so much a circus, isn't it? You know, you got the giant elephant crapping over everyone and the rest of us have to clean it up. That's Donald Trump. And so he's coming back to town because he wants to confront Michael Cohen. I don't know why he's coming back to town. He's giving a deposition in another case brought by 2 FBI agents, or a lawyer and an agent for the FBI in a wrongful retaliation discharge case. So he'll be in town. But, you know, he's stayed about as far. He did not sit in the audience or at counsel table for McConney, the CFO, the controller, for Weisselberg, the CFO, right? At all. He was there for Don Bender because he was there for 2.5 days. And he didn't show back up for this young lad testifying against him. So we'll see what happens. And we'll follow it one place. I do my hot takes one place, exclusively MeidasTouch Network. I do my podcast, Legal AF. Yes, it's exactly what you think. Every Wednesday and Saturday, only at the MeidasTouch Network with my co-anchors, Karen Friedman, Nick Nifolo, Ben Meiselas. On Saturdays, you can get it on audio podcast wherever you get your audio podcast. Help the MeidasTouch Network free subscribe, get them to 2 million. Go look at their website, www.MeidasTouch.com, for all our audio, video, newsroom, reporting, all in one place. You can go there several times a day. It helps the cause. If you like what I'm doing, I'm Michael Popok. Give me a thumbs up, leave a comment. It helps with the algorithm, which is my air quote way of saying the ratings, and keeps me on the air, so to speak. Until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.